Welcome to the Building Business Relationships Show. I'm Matt Stone, and before we officially launch, we're exploring what matters most when it comes to relationships in business. These early episodes are about testing ideas, learning from great guests like we have today, and hearing what you think belongs in the conversation. So please listen in, watch on YouTube, share your thoughts, and help us shape what the show becomes. And as I mentioned today, joining me is a great guest. His name is Mike Gansl. Before we get into what Mike has to offer today, which he has a lot, let me just share a little bit about him. Mike is a principal in Voice of Reason Consulting, known as the seasoned voice of reason. He's a hands-on entrepreneur and trusted senior strategic business advisor. As an expert in growing companies across varied industries, Mike specializes in working with accidental business owners, partners and entrepreneurs of professional service companies who find themselves stuck and want to scale their companies and businesses to the next level. Mike works with leaders and teams of individual contributors to implement business development and revenue growth opportunities. He's well known for his problem-solving capabilities across marketing, sales training, operations, partner mediation, and understanding the decisions that business owners need to make to achieve success. So I have a feeling relationships plays into this somehow. Let's explore that now. Mike, thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks, Matt. It's great to see you. And yes, it was really terrific. We're meeting in a networking meeting quite a while ago, and have become friends. Really, it's fun, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for letting me come on your show.
You're one of my favorite people in Manhattan, so it's always good to connect with you. Tell us about a relationship that maybe came through business or that has a business connection to you that's made a big impact on your life and your business.
It's a great question. So, quite a number of years ago, I won't tell you how long, but a long time ago, I met this fellow, and I'll mention his name, Alan Friedman. And I met him in Fire Island, in actually Fair Harbor. And I was out of a job at the moment, and I had been working in the healthcare field, and I was tired of it. And Alan was teaching computer literacy at the American Management Association. And now, in those days, pre 1980, what was computer literacy? Actually, he was putting together the computer language dictionary, which was this thin. Words like nanosecond, microsecond, microcomputer, those types of words, that was not there was not in the lexicon at all. And I remember he said to me, we were sitting at the beach, beautiful Fair Harbor on the beautiful sand, and he says, "Would you like to come to my classes?" And I go to all of his classes, and that inspired me to really get into the computer industry. Not only that, but he also got me a job in the computer industry. And so I go back to the 1980s that I'm already selling microcomputers and marketing microcomputers for quite some time. I've been 5 years working for small companies that went public and bust in what I call the halcyon days of the computer world and the very beginning. And I owe it all to this fellow who was just generous enough to say, "Sure, you don't have to pay, just come and sit." And then when he left the MA, he let me sit on all his classes then. Now the wonderful thing about Alan, I've lost touch with him, but that little binder of the computer language dictionary became this thick in 37 languages, and then went on to a CD that was sold with every Dell computer went in those days. So I know he had great success, and it was wonderful. So that was the impact. How meet somebody by chance and then go from there.
Wow. How has that relationship manifest in your mind over the years? When does it pop up in your head? What triggers that?
Everyone asks me, how did I get into this business? But I think about it because I think, how relationships, wherever they start, can be so impactful and so meaningful. I can give you the ones that were negative, but I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But, I think of the positive ones, and I think of the ones that people really made a change, where I made a sea change in my life. And that was a sea change.
Yeah.
It was 5 years working. I worked for some very charismatic people. And then after that, I started my own business, and I would not have been able to do that if it weren't for Alan and making that sea change, and then working for some people who were just incredible, charismatic people who inspired me.
Mm. Yeah. Every relationship has the opportunity to radically change the direction of your life.
That was one.
And that was one of them. Cool.
Of course, my wife is another one too, but we're not going to talk about
Right.
that.
I mean, I was thinking about my wife too, which is why the whole distinction between personal and business relationships has never really worked for me. Because if it's a human being that you're in a relationship with, it's the context that's different, but the dynamics, they're all consequential. And
They
so,
are.
yeah.
Yeah, just consequential. So look, I'm 30, 38, 39. My wife is 5 months pregnant. And I come home one afternoon and I say, Gladys, I've got good news for you and I've got bad news for you. Which would you like first? And she says, give me the good news. I said, I want to start my own business. She says, give me the bad news. I said, I want to start my own business. And she says, well, where are we going to get the money? I said, we're going to get the money out of the bank. She says, but we don't have a lot of money. We have $5,000. I said, I know, but I think this is a chance I need to do. Now she stuck with me. She said, okay. She called some of my friends and she said, look, do you think he can do it? And they said yes. And so she went along with me. But it wasn't easy in those first few years. So without her, never happened.
Oh my goodness. I'm thinking of my own examples of that with my wife too. It's so powerful when someone believes in you.
That's the original partnership when you think about it.
Yeah, that's right. So let's build on this and pull this thread a little bit. So just thinking about all the clients you've worked with, you've helped businesses grow revenue and look at the connective tissue between all the different pieces of the business that need to happen in order for revenue to grow. It's not always just a one thing. Get a new salesperson. And I know you're really strategic in looking at how the operations are fitting with sales and everything else. Where do you see relationship issues bubble up in the clients that you've worked with over the years?
I'll start with my own partnership. I've been business partners with Matt Plosiak for 29 years in two businesses. So 15 years in a network systems integration company, 10 years separate, although our friendship continued, best friends, etc. And then the last 14 years, Voice of Reason consulting together. And so, and I'll go back to the early days. We were in business for about, 30 days, a month. And we're standing nose to nose. We're about to hit each other because two type A guys. It's like, I want it my way. No, I want it my way. No. And so we realized, if that partnership was going to succeed, we really had to do something about our egos. We had to really figure out what was more important to us, our ego or our business. So actually, just a little thing. In those days, both of us were in actual therapy with separate therapists. But we went to Matt's therapist first, and it didn't really go right for us. We went to my therapist. And then, interestingly enough, for the next 15 years, every 6 weeks, Matt and I went and met with a psychotherapist who was an industrial psychologist, and here's what we learned. And by the way, when we had a third partner, he came with us, and when we had a junior partner, he came with us. And here's what we did in those sessions. The words that are not said sink the business. Simple as that. The words that are not said sink the business. And that is really what it's all about. You get down to the human level. You get down to the very basic thing of communication. How do you feel when somebody says something to you? What does it mean when they say it's okay? What does that really mean? And for 15 years, now we grew that company very successfully. And that was the basic premise. The words that are not said sink the business. And so when I work with partners, and I've worked with partners in my consulting practice, and I've worked with partners in that systems integration company as well, that's been always present. What's not being said in any relationship, doesn't matter whether you're a business partner or not, what's not being said? What are the words? What is the conversation that's going on in their head, which is actually not necessarily coming out of the mouth? In fact, there was a time in the beginning when I used to say to Matt, if you want me to understand what you're saying, you have to move your lips. Because he was already having that conversation that was going on inside his head. So I've currently worked with business partners, and I'm always trying to figure out what are they not saying. And I give them a safe space so that things come out. And, when I meet with them, I'll say, so what's happening? And then they'll give me the top level, the surface and stuff. And then I stop and 5 minutes of silence until, and I say nothing until something gets said, and then the work happens. And now in those sessions, I might speak about 10% of the time. 90% of the time, they're talking, they're communicating with one another. And, maybe a little bit I can direct it a little bit, maybe point out something, but they're doing the work.
It's interesting to me too, because when you talk about that silence, which is so powerful, I mean, we want to fill the vacuum, especially if there's nervousness around it. That silence is really important to communication.
Now, I've learned that from my partner, Matt.
Yeah.
I remember we used to go to meetings,
Yeah.
and I would just, vomit it all over the place, boom, 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 boom. And Matt would, and when I'd go to the meeting and he would be leading the meeting, it was like he would just wait. What? It's like, and it was powerful.
Yeah.
That moment, let people talk. That 5 minutes, live with the silence, be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And I learned that from my partner.
When I'm successful at having the patience and presence to do it, it feels powerful because you're literally pulling someone without doing anything. Your energy is pulling, and eventually something's going to come out. And if there's a basis of a good relationship there, right, then your likelihood, because I've also worked with teams, and maybe you have too, where the trust is so broken that it's just a fortress, and it's just the walls are so thick, the incentives, people are disincentivized to say anything real, and that is the point. That is the message that gets out. Is we got to go back to just building a relationship first before we can even get to anything. You're reminding me too of a mentor years ago who the framing of the question that he would do to get that was, what is it that we don't want to talk about? Okay, listen, just a couple more questions because these are pretty lightning round things. What are we not talking about enough, in your view, in the public square, if you will, online and in other venues, about relationships that we should be?
I think we're at a really interesting point in terms of technology and humanness. Now, obviously, I could say AI, okay? So I think that really we're at a very interesting point of, in the very beginning, the precipice of how much of our humanness do we give up to technology. And this is, now, you think about it, because um, the commercial internet really didn't happen until the 80s, the mid to late 80s, right? And no, networking, computer networking didn't really happen until the late 80s as well. And that's not a very long time, right? And so the technology window prior to, let's say, 1980 was a long window. Now the windows got shorter and shorter and shorter. So now the windows are literally, I mean, it's sometimes beyond our imagination as to how short this AI technology window is. And so now the issue that so many people are having is, how do we incorporate that into our lives? What does it mean for our humanness? I mean, we're talking about people losing their jobs, thousands and thousands of people losing their jobs. Why? Because those entry level jobs are now being done by technology. Now, that always happens, but it's never happened this rapidly. That's the issue. And so it's so fast that as humans and human relationships, we don't know quite how to deal with it. So many of us will say, well, it's going to take over the world, so it's inevitable. And there are other people who are saying, no, I don't want to give up my humanness. And I think that you can talk about relationships. We're talking then about relationships to technology and then the relationships to ourselves. And I don't know if we're equipped to totally handle it with the rapidity that's happening today.
Yeah, you're right. The speed of change is getting faster, and
But so fast. It's not just getting faster.
yeah,
It's blink. Our eyes are blinking. If look, I'm a sales guy, right? And my partner Matt sent me an article. I think it was in the Harvard Business Review about how people are using AI prompts and such to basically take over the sales process. So in a sense, if you want to follow out to its extension, it's like, eventually we don't need salespeople because AI is going to do it all. Somebody's just going to sit there, you know, look up the right prompt, next prompt, the next prompt, and then so we talked about entry level people. Well, I thought sales is both an art and a science.
Right.
It's a craft.
Right.
So it's just that is so that this change is not just speeding up. It's
Yeah.
it's almost the speed of light.
Yeah. And of course, the anxiety around the unknown, because nobody actually knows exactly how it's going to play out. Not one person in the world knows exactly how this is going to play out. That's the thing. So it creates this vacuum, and boy, humans do not like that. I mean, that the unpredictability, can't see around the corner. So I don't know. We'll see how all this plays out. Humans like other humans. Let's face it. We like fighting, but we also like to love each other. So I don't know.
Well, that's the saving grace. You
Right?
just said it.
Yeah.
Humans like humans love humans.
Yeah.
Uh, certainly, yes, that's the saving grace.
It is.
And so that's what we have to hold on to.
We
Is
have to.
that we have to figure out a way to do that.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Well, hopefully your show is going to help that.
Well, and
right?
we'll finish with that question. So, what are you excited about with the launch of the show?
I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm. I love the fact that you're going to probe a lot of interesting people, ask them some great questions. Actually, you're going to show their humanness. You're going to show them why it's okay to be human. And if there's anything I can do to help you with that, you can count on me. But yeah,
Well,
that's what I think would be great. You're going to show people who are experts in whatever in business in their field, but you're going to aim for, what's the humanness. And that's a great thing. At least that's my opinion. We'll see.
we're going to do that together because I will be inviting you onto the panels as well. So start getting
Love to.
hair and makeup ready and everything.
Oh, I got a haircut right now.
I do have a great hairdresser if you need somebody.
I have one too.
Guaranteed results. You'll get the same cut every time. I remember where was I? I was staying at some place and they said, oh, do you need shampoo? And I said, I went to the person and they looked at my head and they went, they just almost puked laughing.
Well, but you still have to have good skincare. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm sure. You have to be careful with the sun and all of that. It's not
It is not, does not free you of the obligation to maintain.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mike, an absolute joy as always to connect with you. Now I want to just go grab a coffee and keep the conversation going. We'll have to do that. So thank you for listening and watching the Building Business and Relationship Show. This pre-launch phase is all about discovery, as you've seen. So if something sparked your interest, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, ideas, or guest suggestions or topic suggestions, especially, and help us shape the conversations to come. And of course, subscribe, especially on YouTube. Please go to our channel on YouTube, Building Business Relationships Show on YouTube. And then you'll be the very first to know not only when we officially launch, but in the meantime, when new content drops. And thanks again. We'll see you next time.